Okay, it looks like we're live. So, hi, I am so excited to be here. This special session has been in the making for a number of weeks now, and I'm so thrilled that it's actually happening. So, first, I want to introduce myself, and then I want to introduce our special guest here. My name is Danielle Tucker, and I am the creator of our Speaker Success series, where I welcome different speaking professionals to come on and share the do's and don'ts of what it means to be a successful public speaker. And the reason why I started this special series is because I know that there is a big gap within the speaking industry to really have a number of speaking professionals who can help public speakers to really grow in different areas of expertise. And so that's why I am so excited to hop on here and have this special session with you where I have the amazing Rokita Johnson from Rokita Johnson Public Speaking. And really starting off, I wanted to share with you a little bit more about Rokita, but first, welcome Rokita. I'm so excited to be here with you and to have this special session for public speaking myths and musts.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Danielle.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go ahead and introduce you, and then I'm going to turn over the reins to you, and we can just jump right in because I'm literally so excited. I've been waiting for this for like weeks. And I know that there are so many gems that you have in your mind and within the expertise that you have that you can share with everyone. So I'm really excited to get started. So without further ado, Rokita Johnson is an award-winning speaker, certified world-class speaking coach, author, and founder of Rokita Johnson Public Speaking, LLC. She has worked with a variety of people to develop and hone their speaking skills and specializes in serving business professionals and Christian speakers and clergy. Her goal is not to change who a person authentically is, but instead to bring out the best version of who they already are as a speaker. Through private and group coaching and training programs, she works with clients on storytelling, presentation creation, audience engagement, managing nerves, and a lot more. She is based out of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and considers it a calling to help people slay the stage. So again, thank you so much, Rokita, and I'm going to turn everything over to you so we can start talking about the speaking myths and musts.
Okay, great. Thank you for that awesome introduction, Danielle. So I thought that today's topic would be important because public speaking is an art that's been around almost, since the beginning, starting with the Greeks and the Romans and politics, and it's just been on the uphill since then. But there's a lot of information that's been passed down through the years, some of it good, some of it valuable, but some of it is a little questionable, and it may not be the best advice to follow. So I wanted to address some of those myths and some of the musts that are good for successful public speaking in today's times. And with that said, I wanted to start off with nervousness, because that is something that when I first started working with clients, that is a big fear. It's a big challenge for them. They want to be great speakers, but they say, I just have this anxiety. How do I get rid of it? I just want to be fearless when I go up there. I want to have no fear whatsoever. And I'm sorry to burst their bubble, but here's the thing, and this is one of those myths. It is not a bad thing to have nerves. Having a little bit of nervousness can actually be good for you. It can be beneficial. That adrenaline that you feel rushing through your veins can actually give you the energy that you need to do a good presentation. It can keep you it can help you keep your edge instead of on the edge, is how I like to put it, which is a good thing. You want to be infused with energy. You don't want to look like you're lethargic up there. So there's ways to leverage that nervousness. If you have no nervousness, I might actually be a little worried. I might think you're dead up there. Even the most popular speakers in the world, they will even tell you that they feel a little bit of that fear when they first hit the stage. So it is okay to have a little bit of fear. I don't want people to think that I have to eliminate it. No, it's more about managing it, leveraging it while you're up there.
That
definitely a myth that we need to get rid of.
Yeah, that is so interesting that you say that because, for one, I am aware, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that public speaking is the number one fear that most people have just in general in life. And it can seem kind of strange because speaking is something that we do on a regular basis, but even just having those nerves and just the thought of getting on a stage and speaking in that regard can be so scary to people. But I think it's also really reassuring to hear that you say, like, if you're not nervous, then something is wrong. So that's really reassuring.
Definitely. It's still one of the top fears in the world. You know, it fluctuates what number on the top 10 fears list. It's sometimes it's number one, sometimes it's number three, but it's always a big fear. And I really don't think it's the fear of speaking in front of people per se, it's the fear of judgment. We think that people are judging us when we're up there, when most people admire someone who can get up there and speak in front of other people, because most people don't want to do that themselves. They don't want to be in that position. So, no, they're not judging you. They're there to listen. You have something valuable to offer, and they want you to do well. They don't want you to bomb, because you hear that often. I think that the audience wants me to do, you know, I'm going to trip over myself and they're going to laugh. No, the audience doesn't want to waste their time. You have something valuable that they needed to hear, so they want you to do well. And as far as more myths associated with nervousness, one piece of advice, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, I think it's horrible advice. I don't want anyone to follow this, is to picture your audience naked while you are up there. I don't know who came up with that, but personally, I think that is very awkward. I don't want to do that in the first place. What if you have family and friends in the audience? It's horrible advice. So I always tell people, please totally disregard that one. That is not going to make you feel more empowered. If anything, it would make me feel awkward. So I don't recommend that at all.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. I've definitely heard that, but it kind of went one ear and out the other because that's kind of disturbing to me too. Like, I don't think that would help me. That would be more distracting than anything. So I'm really glad that you helped bring clarity to that.
Absolutely. So we don't want to imagine an audience naked. Also, something that I've heard some people recommend, they'll say, well, you know, it's okay, just tell the audience you're nervous. Just admit that when you go up on the stage to start speaking. I would shy away from that. I don't think that is necessary. Why would you need to tell the audience that you're nervous? Here's the thing, you probably look confident to them when you were up there. They had a good, you looked fine to them when you were there, but now that you're calling this out, oh, I'm nervous, it's almost like now they're going to look for nervous signs there. So I think it's good to go up with the mindset that I'm going to do great. I am coming here to do something, to give some valuable information. I don't want to call out something that I think might be negative, which is, oh, I'm nervous. Like, I don't think you need to call that out. So that's something that I don't recommend. Don't call out the nervousness, you know, focus on just being a good speaker, focus on what you came to give them. Don't imagine the audience naked. Those are things you don't want to do. So with that said, here are some things that you do want to do to increase your confidence. Number one, practice, practice, practice. I put that first because nothing else that I say afterward is going to matter if you do not practice your presentation. Some people have this thinking that, oh, if I practice, then that means I'm going to sound more rehearsed. I'm going to sound less natural when I'm up there. And I want to sound natural, so I'm not going to practice. Okay, guess what else is going to happen? You're going to ramble when you're up there because you didn't practice. You're going to start rambling all over the place. You're going to lose your place, and then you're going to forget to get back to what you were talking about. And then you're going to waste time because you're rambling. So, number one, you always need to practice. And when you practice, I tell people you need to practice standing up and speaking the words out loud. Practicing is not just writing some of your content out, writing bullet points out, and trying to memorize them. That's not going to be effective. You actually need to practice as if you were speaking in front of the audience. It's kind of like what coaches tell their players. You need to practice as if you were actually playing the game. And it is the same thing when you are practicing for your presentation. First of all, when you're standing up, your posture does affect your confidence and energy level. And speaking the words out loud will let you know if something just doesn't sound right as you wrote it on the paper. Reading something and saying something are two totally different things. And when you say a word and you're like, oh, that doesn't even sound natural to me, there might be a better word that you want to say. There might be a different way that you want to phrase the thought that you have, but you're not going to know that unless you actually speak the words out loud. So you definitely have to stand up and you need to speak the words out loud when you practice.
Yeah, that's really important advice that I think you can share with everyone, because one of the things that I have been really considering, and maybe this is something that also you can share because I'm sure that our listeners may have this question as well, is that everyone is different. Everyone has a different speaking style. Everyone has a different way in which they practice and prepare for their whatever their speaking engagement is. And I know for me personally, I am not the type of person that feels like I can just go out and just wing it. Like I feel like that's
Me either.
the worst way for me to prepare. And I feel like also just doing it that way makes me feel even more nervous than if I were to have practice and still have those nerves, versus like not practicing, going up there, having to think about what I'm saying, and then you get into the rambling. And so I don't know if this is relevant to I mean, I'm sure it's relevant to practice, but there are different styles of how people practice their content and get on a stage. So would you say that different practicing styles would vary based on personality, or would you say that it's fairly standard practice across anyone?
Well, your personality is your personality. Practice is a whole other science, I'll call it, in itself. So as far as practicing, there are certain strategies that I will recommend to all my clients. So like I just said, besides practicing standing up and speaking the words out loud, I always tell my clients, you do want to practice on audio. Just practice speaking your content into your phone, something like your iPhone, record it, because you're going to play it back to hear how you sound. How's your speaking rate? Are you speaking too fast? Are you speaking too slow? How is the volume of your voice? Does it sound pretty even? Is it too high? Are you speaking too low and people can't hear you? Are you projecting? Those are things you're going to catch when you listen to yourself. You also need to record yourself. So aside from listening, you have to watch how you look on a stage or in, your living room. How are your body movements? How are your gestures? How are your mannerisms? Do you look like you're nervous? Those are things you are going to catch by watching yourself. So you should record yourself. You should record yourself as far as the movements on video, and you need to listen to yourself. Those are things I always recommend. They're just, they're good things to always do when you're practicing. So it's not so much personality, because your personality is going to come through naturally, but you want the best version of your personality to come through. That's only going to happen as you are practicing. You have to
Awesome.
practice.
That makes sense. So anyone can speak, which I know this, but you are the speaking coach. So anyone can speak, anyone can do this. It's just a matter of practicing and committing to growing at what you truly want to be good at.
Absolutely. And it's just like when I tell my clients that I work with, I am not trying to change who you authentically are, but what I am trying to do is to make you the best version of who you already are. If you are someone who's not a naturally loud person, maybe you're more introverted. I am not going to ask you to come out there and act like you're Tony Robbins and scream at the audience. And that's just not who you are. Who you are can be very effective, and that's just what I'm going to work with you on. There are ways to leverage your personality to bring out the best of who you are. So, no, you don't want to change who you are in practice, but you do need to practice.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So moving forward, I wanted to see if you have any other do's and don'ts that you could share with us in terms of what to do and what not to do in order to successfully be a great public speaker.
Sure. So I want to share one more tip, Danielle, as far as nervousness before I move to the next one, just because I feel it's an important one. And it has to do with shifting your focus. Because a lot of speakers, when they say they're nervous, really it's because they're so focused on themselves. How does my outfit look? Am I coming across perfect on the stage? Well, the audience doesn't really care about perfection. What they do want you to do is to be present. So that means thinking about their needs. What is it that they have come to hear from you? How are their lives going to be better after they listen to you? They should be different leaving than how they came to you. It's kind of like how we say in the church, oh, you should leave different than how you came into the church. So it's the same idea with the speaker and the audience. So take the focus off of yourself and put it where it belongs, on the audience. Remember, you have something valuable that they have come to hear. And as long as you give them what they need, things are going to go well, but, take the focus off of yourself. So that's the last thing I'll say about that as far as nervousness. Now, the next topic to address is your opening, how to open with a bang. So first impressions are everything. I know you've heard that, I'm sure. Our followers listening, they've heard that as well, but first impressions are very important, and that's the same thing when it comes to being a speaker. You have the luxury of time a little bit more. Say when you're at a networking event, you might have 60 seconds for someone to form a first impression of you, but it's a little bit different when you are a speaker. You really have, and these are two important numbers, 7 seconds and then 30 seconds. So what's the importance of those two numbers? Within 7 seconds, audience members will decide if they like you or not. It is just that fast. They will form an impression. And within 30 seconds, they will decide if they want to keep listening to you or not. So those two numbers are very important. Do I like this person? Am I getting a good impression of them? And do I want to keep listening to what they have to say? So starting off on the right foot, very important, sets the tone for the rest of your presentation. So that's one reason that first impressions are so important. It does set the tone for the rest of your presentation. So with that said, there are a couple ways that you can start off your presentation strongly. The first one, a story, which is probably my favorite way to start off a presentation. I love stories since I was a child. Most people I know love a good story. If it's entertaining, all the better. But stories are so great because no matter where you live in the world, stories transcend culture, they transcend country, they provide a lesson in an entertaining way, they help your point come to life. So instead of you just saying, oh, don't waste time, you could craft an entertaining story around that will show people why you don't want to waste time. Maybe it's an experience that you had recently. So stories touch us on an emotional level in a way that facts, figures, statistics never could. So I am personally a big fan of telling stories.
Yeah, that's a really great strategy. And oftentimes, I think why stories are so powerful is just, the imagination, being able to visualize what this person may have been experiencing in that moment, kind of like watching a movie at the movie theater. It really just draws us in. And I know whenever I hear someone sharing stories, it really boost that personal touch with them, and it helps me to feel like I'm even more connected with what they're sharing with me versus if they were just someone I saw on a stage and I've never met them before. Like, I don't know who they are. And I think that's another
Hmm.
reason why stories are so powerful.
Absolutely. Stories build a bond between the speaker and the listeners. So you want to take the audience on a journey. And that's ultimately what a story does. And you can be descriptive with the story, the characters that you talk about, how you describe the scenery, you have people enthralled. And I mean, I actually did this recently. I was at my Toastmasters meeting and I'm starting off this speech and I say, I remember it like it was yesterday. So as soon as you say that, people are like, oh, like, okay, what's going on here? And then I proceeded to say, I was looking out the window as the plane started to descend. The palm trees dotted the landscape. The turquoise blue waters of the Atlantic Ocean kissed the blue sky above. The hills looked like little green circus tents. People can picture that in your mind as the plane is starting to descend and you're looking down at an island. So I brought my listeners into my world, and that's something people love. They will stick with you when you do that in a story. Get descriptive, bring them into the world. You will make your point with your story because you're never telling a story just to tell a story. The story has to be connected with your message somehow. What is the whole point of this speech that you're giving? That story needs to be connected to it. So I'm personally a fan of stories. You cannot go wrong as long as they support your overall message. They are intertwined. Stories are great.
Awesome. And moving forward from stories, are there any other strategies that you could share with having a successful opening?
Sure. Questions. You probably heard that, opening with a question. And there's more to it than just a simple question like, hey, what's your favorite color? Science shows that our brains are hardwired to answer questions. And I thought that was interesting when I read that. When we hear a question, it's like something goes off in our minds, like, hey, I want to answer this question right away. So it is not just, entertaining for the audience, just something to engage them. Our minds actually do want to answer. So why not ask the question? And there are two types of questions that you can ask. Rhetorical is one, direct is the other one. A rhetorical question is a question where you are not really expecting the audience to give you an answer. It's more so that you want the audience to think about the point that you are trying to make. It's a good way to get them on the same page with what you're talking about. So for example, you might say something like, think about your typical weekday morning routine. Wouldn't it feel good to wake up feeling well rested, not rushed, eating your breakfast in peace, just having a pleasant morning in general? People will be thinking about that like, yeah, that would feel really good. So that's when you can go into, yes. So let me give you 3 strategies for how you can start your morning off strong and on the right foot. They're already on page with you because you have brought them into their problem. They are feeling rushed as it is. So now they're ready to hear what your solutions are. So rhetorical is good for that, for getting the audience on the same page and to get them thinking. A direct question, that's pretty easy. They're just going to answer what you ask them. However, I like to recommend do not ask closed-end questions, which are simple yes or no answers. Ask something where they really have to think about it a bit, an open-ended question. And to go even deeper, ask a provocative question. I think those are really good. Those are those questions like, so what will happen to you, the quality of your life, if you don't take this step today? Ooh, people are thinking about that now. Like, yeah, what will happen? Or you could say, how will your life be better in 2 years if you make this change today? I like questions like that. They're a little bit deeper. They're not like the typical shallow ones. They get people just really on the same page with where you're going. It it touches them on a deep level, those types of questions. So I'm a fan of open-ended questions and even more so provocative ones. So
Yeah,
those are,
that's really insightful. I think anything, especially since questions are so powerful to do this in the first place, anything that can make someone think and really start to pique their curiosity and really hone them in, I think is like super super important. So I'm really glad that you shared the strategy about starting with a question.
yeah. So with that said, I probably get some shocked responses over this one. So there's a myth as far as opening up your speech. There's one way that I am not totally a fan of, that I don't recommend, but I'll go into more detail, of course, about how you can accomplish it. I don't really recommend opening up with a joke. I know that has been advice that's been passed down forever. However, here's the thing. A joke, number one, most people have probably already heard it. Most people have probably already heard the joke. Especially if you got this joke off the internet, I guarantee somebody in the audience has heard it. Number two, if your joke is unoriginal, subconsciously the audience will start to wonder, well, what else is unoriginal about this presentation? It does start to flavor the rest of your presentation. And I get why people want to do it, why they want to start off with the joke. I want to be funny. I want to be funny, Rokita. That's something I hear from my clients. How can I be funny? Okay, there are ways to infuse humor into your presentation without telling a joke. Think about comedians. They don't get up there and just tell a litany of jokes. No, they find the humor that is already there in a situation. Real life is funny, okay? And that's what I tell my clients. I don't want you to add humor. I don't want you to force the funny. I want you to uncover the humor that is already there. One good way to do that is with the stories that you tell in your speech. Stories, a true story naturally has funny moments in it. The situation might be funny. It might be so ridiculous or absurd. A conversation the characters are having can be funny. The way someone sounds, one of your characters, maybe it's a story about your aunt is one of the characters in the story. She talks a certain way and it's just so entertaining. Gestures that your characters have that you can emulate on the stage, that can be funny. That is not forcing humor. You are simply telling and showing what really happened there. And I'll give you an example, Danielle, because I think I'm going to use this in a speech soon. When you are someone who really observes life, you could find humor in anything. I was on a flight recently, and long story short, it was a full flight. They put my suitcase in the bin in first class, the overhead bin in first class. I was sitting in coach. And I was sitting there thinking about this. My suitcase is in first class, and I am in coach. My suitcase is in first class, and I am in coach. My suitcase has made it to first class before I have. How is this life? How did this happen? Like, that made me laugh when I thought about it. Now, you see, if I told that in the story, people would laugh because you're just like, that is really life. That's how things happen. So observe, make observations, really give those conversations. How did those conversations sound when your characters were talking? How did they look when they were talking, when they were going through the motions? I mean, the humor is there. You do not have to force it. You just have to bring it forth. Bring it to the surface. It is already there. You know, I don't like people to feel like they need to go out of their lane and force themselves to be funny. First of all, if you think about it, comedians are all funny in different ways. They all have their own different personalities. There is some humor that is that dry humor, and then there's that laugh out loud, that deep belly laugh type humor, that energetic humor some comedians have. So I just don't like people to feel like I have to be funny or I have to put a joke in here. Gratuitous humor is not funny, just meaning a joke you put in here just to be there. It's not connected to the rest of your speech in any way. It's like you dropped it off, left it, and went on with the rest of your presentation. Like, I don't understand that when people do that. So
drop it and leave.
you dropped it and left, and I'm confused. I don't get it. So humor is there. You don't have to put jokes in.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. I think also the sharing the real life scenarios is a really great way to create a personal touch and really break that barrier between connecting with you and your audience while you are on the stage. I think it's a really great way to create that personal connection without feeling like you're just sharing something that may have been shared already before and then breaking that trust because, oh, well, we've heard this joke before. But I think you're exactly right. Being able to share your personal experiences, like how we were earlier, for our listeners that are joining in. Apparently, I have some, Rokita and I were just talking. I have some like race happening like behind my house, and we just had a good laugh about it because I was like, well, wonderful, like we're about to go live and there are like cars zooming by, and to make it even to top the funny off, they're race cars. Like, who would have thought? So absolutely, like sharing those personal stories is a really great way to help create that connection with your audience.
Absolutely. We all have our own stories. Put your own stories in. They are original. No one has heard them before, so at least you know that much. So the humor is there. Just bring it forth. Be someone who's very observant in life, and you will always be able to find funny moments to talk about.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I wanted to just ask and see, I know that you shared, you just like a quick recap from, just to repeat for our listeners, we talked about asking questions, we talked about sharing stories, we talked about don't start with a joke. Is there anything else that you wanted to share in terms of having a successful opening, or is there more information that you wanted to make sure that we get into within our conversation?
Well, in keeping with the time, since I really do like to be mindful of people's times, I'll move forward with a few other myths and musts. And if we have anything at the end, or if an audience has a question about another way to start a presentation with the bang, they can feel free to ask. And if we have time, we'll definitely address it. Sound okay?
Perfect. Sounds good.
Okay. So the next topic is PowerPoint. Now, PowerPoint, is probably the most popular visual aid that people use today with presentations. And I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with it. PowerPoint does have its place. You know, I'm not someone who's a hater, like don't ever use PowerPoint. No, PowerPoint has its place. However, I feel like some speakers use it as a crutch. When you think about the term visual aid, it's just that. It's a visual that is there to aid. But guess what? It's not there to aid you, the speaker. The visual aid is there to help the audience. It is there to either support their understanding, it can clarify a point better, it can explain a process better, it can make the vague or the abstract clearer. That's where I'm going with this. PowerPoint should not be used as an aid to help you, the speaker, remember your material, because that's what some people do with PowerPoint, and that is abusive, and you are going to make your audience bored and they are going to tune out. Why? Because some speakers put all their text on the slides. And I mean, the things that they're going to say anyway, they have the same words on the slide. Okay, if you're saying this and your slide is also saying this, one of you is not needed here. One of you is not needed here.
Something is
Okay?
wrong.
Something is wrong, and you're actually forcing your audience to make a choice. Do I read what's on the slide? Do I listen to you, the speaker? Of course, you want the audience to listen to you. That slide should only serve a purpose, as I said, to support the audience's understanding. So things that you'll want to include on your slide are things like graphs, charts, a timeline, a diagram, anything that will make what you're saying that much clearer for the audience. You know, something that you're saying, it could seem very vague, but a graph, some type of image will help make that much more understandable for the audience. I do not recommend putting gobs and paragraphs of text on slides. That is just not fair for the audience. So that's something that I just wanted to put that out there. PowerPoint is great when it is used properly. And even with that said, as far as not putting a lot of text on, you want to think about colors. What colors are you using? What are you trying to evoke here as far as with the design? You know, dark colors evoke power, control, authority, sophistication. Bright colors are good because they keep the audience attentive, but you want to use them in small doses throughout the slide. Pastel colors are warm, they're soft, but they can also be perceived as weak. So you want to be careful how you use pastel colors. So I love PowerPoint when it is used properly, but PowerPoint is there to support you, the speaker. You are J-Lo. PowerPoint is your backup dancer. It should not overpower you. It should add to your overall performance. It should help the audience. It's not there to be your crutch to help you remember your material. You should have practiced that ahead of time. It is there to help the audience to follow you better, to understand your content better.
Awesome. That's a really fantastic point. I have heard this quite frequently, and I'm really happy that you touched on this because that has been a constant debate to use PowerPoint or to not use PowerPoint. And from what you were sharing, it sounds to me like it's not a matter of to use or not. I'm sure that's like another discussion in itself, but it's
Mm-hmm.
more so how you use it that is going to
Yes,
make the difference in having a successful speech.
absolutely. It's how. Do I need this slide? Do I need this slide? Or you know what? Maybe it's not PowerPoint, is another visual aid better altogether? It could be something else that is better, that is there to support your content. But if you're going to use PowerPoint, you want to think thoughtfully about the slides in itself. Ask yourself questions like, is this going to support the audience's understanding? Check. Then I want to use it. Is this slide just here because it's entertaining? Because it has a cute image or it's animated? No, I don't want to use it. Is it here because it is here because it has a lot of copy? It's here to remind me of the copy of the words that I want to say. No, then I don't want to use it. So as you can see, there's only really one reason to use it, because it will support the audience's understanding. You know, I worked with a client recently. She made me laugh. She came to me with a presentation for work, and she knew the presentation needed help. And when I saw it, I understood what she's talking about. It had 80 slides. This is typically a 2-hour presentation that she does. 80 slides. I told her off the bat, I can see why her audience gets fatigued. She says she can tell that they get tired, they're listless, even before she's done. That's way too many slides. And as we're going through it, she even admitted a lot of the slides are there to help her. It has a lot of anything. But like I said, she's been doing this presentation for a good while now. She knows the material. Just got to be a little bit more confident in yourself, and we have to pare this down ultimately. So PowerPoint can be your friend. You just don't want to make it an enemy for your audience, and you'll make it an audience by having a lot of copy on there that you don't need. Don't force them to choose between reading the copy and listening to you. That's a no-no.
Right. Yeah. So if we could kind of tie a nice bow on like what a successful PowerPoint would be, would you say making sure that you do the PowerPoint check, like does this support my audience? And then making sure that the colors are welcoming and that it's nothing hard on the eyes or faint to see. And then I think the third point that you mentioned was making sure there's not too many words on there to where it's going to bore your audience and just make them feel fatigued and just kind of tune out.
Absolutely. That's it boiled down in a nutshell. That's it. Those are the 3 points. I'm okay with words being on a PowerPoint. There's nothing wrong with words on there. Sometimes you'll read this advice online where it says, oh, you should only have this many slides, or you should only have this many bullet points on a presentation. Again, it's more thinking about what is on this slide that is absolutely necessary to help the audience with understanding what I'm speaking. Sometimes you may not need a whole sentence on that slide or a bullet point. It could be something as simple as a statistic. You literally can have something like 87%. That could be the only thing that you have on that slide, because that statistic is crucial to what you're talking about. It's important. So to underscore the importance of it, you have just that statistic on there. And quite honestly, that's where a lot of presentations are going, from what I'm understanding and what I'm seeing a lot of people do. They're really paring down on copy. They'll have images, they'll have the numbers there, whatever it is that is ultimately going to be the most crucial piece of content for the audience to remember. You want them to remember the most important things. I'm not really going to remember 8 bullet points on a slide.
Yeah, that's a little bit much.
A little bit much.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really helpful to understand.
Okay, great. And then the last topic to cover as far as myths and must, Q&A. So let me ask you, Danielle, just what you think. Where do you think the Q&A should come in a presentation?
My first instinct is to say at the end of a presentation. That's my first thought. So you can tell me.
The very end of the presentation?
The very end.
Okay.
So you can tell me if I'm wrong or not.
Well, you are wrong, but that's why I'm here. It's it's okay. So here's what I will say about Q&A. That is a big mistake that a lot of new speakers make. Q&A should not be the very last portion of your presentation. Q&A, for 2 reasons, and I'm going to talk about why. Number one, you might get that person that asked that oddball question. You don't want your presentation to end on that. You don't want that to be the last thing the audience hears. Number two, your voice should always be the very last thing the audience hears. When your presentation is ending, you have your Q&A, and then that's when you cut right back in to actually end the presentation. Wrap up your points. You can reiterate the points you were talking about, give a call to action, but you don't want to just end on a Q&A segment. No, have the Q&A, and then you pick it right back up to tie your presentation up with a bow at the end. You don't want to end on that. How you start your presentation, how you end a presentation is very important. You always want to maintain control of your presentation. And since you don't know the questions that will come forth from the Q&A segment, you always want to make sure that you are the last voice that your audience hears. So do not end on Q&A. And one more thing, go ahead, Danielle. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's very insightful, especially the point about the oddball question. I feel like there's always someone who wants to be that person who asks that question. So that is really fantastic advice.
Absolutely. Just maintain control of your presentation from beginning to end. They should hear you start and they should hear you finish. Just remember that. And then one other piece of advice I will give about Q&A, instead of, when you start the Q&A segment, instead of saying, are there any questions? Instead, say, now what questions do you have for me? It's a slight change in wording that makes a big difference. What questions do you have versus, let me bring it back. Are there any questions versus what questions do you have for me? This sets the expectations that you are going to have a question. I want you to ask a question. Please, this is the time to do it. There's just something about that that subconsciously sets it off in the audience's mind, like, oh, okay, now this is the time to do it. They want me to ask. So ask it in that way, like you are expecting them to have something for you. There is something that you can answer for them. People always have questions. They might not ask, but the simple fact that you phrase it that way lets them know that it is okay. Now is the time.
Yes, that is very interesting point that I don't think I've ever thought about or considered, is how you phrase the question. Because would you say that that could make the difference in the types of questions that are being asked as well?
Not necessarily. You still get an oddball question. You will, but the point is, at least you will get questions. Now, sometimes when I work with clients and I have the Q&A portion of their presentation, and just out of curiosity, I will ask them, so when you come to the Q&A portion, do you actually get questions? Do you get any? And sometimes they'll say, maybe one or two. If it's the same presentation that they're giving over and over, some audiences will have a few questions, some not so much. So I think it will make a big difference by presenting your question in this way. Now, what questions do you have for me? It really might increase the questions that are asked anyway. Not necessarily the quality, because you'll get people, like I said, who will ask the off ones, but it lets the audience know that you are expecting them to have something that maybe they did not understand, or you can provide more clarity on, that you can expound upon.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So those are my myths and musts. And then I know we wanted to cover some, for speakers who are starting a speaker business, some of the must-haves that you absolutely need, things that you need to get started off with your business. So there are 5 that I have. Number 1, you do need a speaker website. Danielle, this is your expertise. This is your area, so I know you will co-sign it. You absolutely need to have a speaker website. This is your 24/7 marketing tool. I also have a marketing background as well, so I can speak to this. Even when you are sleeping, and your website can be making money for you. People will go to your website to find out more information about you, the speaker. They will buy products from you. They'll read your blog articles. This is something that you need to have. It's just a non-negotiable. It doesn't have to be super fancy when you're first starting, but it should look professional. Now, I know there are a lot of do-it-yourself websites out here. I had one. I did that when I first started. I had my own. And guess what? I think I had it all of 1 year, and then I had to keep it real with myself. And I said, I need to get a real professional website, because this looks like I did this myself. And that's when I hired someone. You need someone who's professional. They know how to build websites. You want to have a professional image. You want your branding to look the best that it can be. And a professionally designed website will help you with that. I don't know if you have anything to say about the websites. I know that's your area, but
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
important.
Yeah, everything that you shared is spot on. And just to top on to that, having a website is like putting your first foot forward, your best foot forward. And when it comes to being a speaker and being visible and getting out there and sharing your message, you are your brand. And having your website work for you in that way to help take care of, the back end of things and making sure that things are working smoothly so that you can focus on supporting your audience and you can focus on being present and knowing that everything is working for you. It's one of the most important tools, I would say, to making sure that you are successful as a speaker. So I'm really glad that you touched on that point.
Absolutely. You need a website. Like I said, it doesn't have to be super, like 10 pages, 20 pages on it, but it should be professional. It should reflect you, the speaker. The second second element period that you'll need when starting your speaking business, you will need a one sheet. Now, this is a document that people who are looking to hire you, they will look at this document. They want to see who you are. What is your expertise? That should be clearly on this document. Your expertise, your speaking topics, some of your signature presentations, your contact information. If you've written a book, you'll want an image of your book cover on it. You'll want a professional headshot photo, not you on the cell phone. Please have a professional headshot photo. And you can also have some other photos of you in the action of speaking. Speaking photos, those are great. You definitely want all of that on your one sheet. And I recommend having that professionally designed as well. Again, it will make a big difference. You want to look as professional as possible.
Absolutely. I love to say that your speaker one sheet is like your creative resume as a speaker, because it's really an opportunity to be able to showcase your personality. Of course, there'll be ways to do that through video and through being on stage and actually speaking. But I think making sure that you have a speaker one sheet that effectively represents you as a speaker and also portrays your personality in whatever way that is a very important thing to do.
Absolutely. Testimonials, anything like that, your past speaking engagements, all of that included on there. It's definitely your resume. So another non-negotiable, you'll want to have that. Another element that you will need when starting your speaking business, a speaker demo reel. So this is a video, and ideally maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and it will show short video clips of you during different speaking engagements. So it's not just one long continuous video of you at one event. It's a collage of sorts, different clips. It should really convey your personality, your speaking style. When event organizers look at that video, they'll say, okay, they'll see how you interact with the audience. They'll understand what kind of outcomes that the audience can expect from your speaking topics. So it's good if some of your speaking clips are of you making the main points from that presentation. So it should really be tailored, the whole video reel, it should be tailored to your ideal audience. So when event organizers look at it, they're like, okay, this is our person, Danielle is our person, we think she'd be a good fit. Reading is one thing, looking at your one sheet is one thing, looking at your website is one, but seeing is believing. Seeing you in action speaks 1,000 words. And I know sometimes new speakers will say, well, I'm new. I don't really have any paid speaking engagements. How can I even get something together? You might have to speak free for a while. Are there any Toastmaster clubs that will take you? Yes, there are. Toastmaster clubs are always looking for speakers. Go speak there, have it taped. Rotary clubs usually look for guest speakers, have it taped. You might have to do a few free speaking engagements in the beginning in order to build your fantastic speaker reel, but it'll be worth it. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, that's really fantastic advice, especially for new speakers who are wanting to get more experience. And another thing that I oftentimes love to share with speakers that I work with for design work and who are building out the different essentials for their business is that when it comes to your speaker demo reel, I usually recommend anywhere between 60 to 90 seconds in length. Is that similar to what you recommend as well?
Well, I said 2 to 3 minutes, and that's because someone who, and I respect, and she's actually part of Black Speakers Network, I think it was Jessica Lundy. Jessica Lundy did an awesome webinar recently, and that's her expertise. She knows about speaker demo videos. She recommended 2 to 3 minutes, so I trust that. I
Anywhere.
think there are definitely some that are less than that, but a good speaker role that's a bang up one that you really want to showcase who you are and what you talk about, 2 to 3 minutes at the most. I put it like that, at the most at least.
Yeah, I definitely can second the 3 minutes at the most, anywhere between like 1 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
About 90 seconds is about like a minute and a half. So 2 to 3 minutes, it's anywhere between like the 1 to 3 minute mark. So yeah, that's really great.
Okay. And then the last two things for you to start your successful speaking business, you do need signature presentations, a signature talk. So these are presentations, and you will have them listed ideally on your one sheet. These are the talks that you are known for. Maybe it's a motivational talk, something inspirational, or maybe it's a program that you're known for. Like I have my Slay the Stage program, which helps people become excellent public speakers in order to slay the stage. So that's one of my signature programs, presentations, any talks that you do, something that is you, that you are known for. You need to have something that is your own. That's what they're going to associate you with. That's what they're going to look for as far as booking you. So you want to have something ready, your own signature talk.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's really, I think, helpful information, especially for new speakers who may be wondering, okay, like, well, what do I do? How do I make myself stand out in what may feel like such a big industry? And I think sharing the point about having your signature talks is like a really important key to really standing out in the industry.
Definitely, it will definitely help you stand out. You know, this is something that you created. It is your own. It's almost like your calling card. So you do need something. If you don't have something, work on something. Some people have 3 programs or talks or presentations that they may be known for. If you're new, start working on one. You got to start somewhere. Just start working on one. And then lastly, this isn't really something so tangible like the one sheet or the website or your speaker reel. However, I think it is important. And this is, you need to have your expertise defined. And I'm saying this because often when people are new speakers, they really want to hit the ground running. I'll ask them, well, it's great you want to be you want to be a speaker. What is it that you talk about? Oh, I talk about this, or I could talk about that, and this, that, and the third. No. If you talk about everything, you talk about nothing. Nothing. You need to be known for something. Event organizers cannot even consider you if they don't know what it is that you talk about. What is your specialty? When I think of Dr. Will Moreland, for example, who's part of Black Speakers Network, I think about leadership. That is something he talks about all the time. When you think of Lisa Nichols, Lisa is about personal success. She had a very trying time in her adulthood when she was a young mother, and that story was a springboard to her speaking business. She has a very inspirational story. When I think about my fellow speaker friend, Aurora Gregory, how to pitch and get picked for speaking opportunities. She's with the marketing communications. I think of that, I associate that with her. People think about how to slay the stage when they think of me, becoming a better public speaker, a better presenter. That's what I do, as a speaker coach and as a teaching speaker. So you have to think about, what is it that I am going to be known for? What is my expertise? The better you can niche that down, you can define it, the better you can get hired for opportunities that you can be considered. People will know what it is that you talk about. You have to be clear upon that. You have to be clear on that.
Awesome. Yeah, that is really, really helpful information. And so, what I wanted to share now is we're coming up on our timeline for this special session. So, I wanted to ask and see if you have any final points that you wanted to share with our listeners so that they can be 100% equipped with everything that they learned during this session, and also see if there's anything else that you wanted to share that could help to catapult them forward.
One piece of advice I will give, besides everything I've given today, if you want to be a speaker, you have to actually speak, okay? Put yourself out there, put yourself on the other side of fear. You cannot call yourself a speaker if you are not actually speaking. And like I said, it doesn't have to be some paid speaking opportunity, because you might not when you're brand new, but start off doing something. I don't care if you volunteered to MC an organization's meeting. Maybe you're involved in some organization, a club, offer to MC their event. That's a speaking opportunity right there. An MC is a type of speaker. You know, there are different types of speakers. Maybe you want to be a moderator, volunteer to moderate a panel. If you are a part of Toastmasters, speak up more. If you're involved in your church, speak up more. You have to actually speak to improve your craft. That is the only way you are going to get there. And every time you do it, get that good video footage. Get that video footage. You absolutely need that. So that's really my advice. You cannot work on all of this, all the advice that I'm giving today, unless you actually speak.
Wonderful. This was all such helpful information, Rokita, and I'm so thankful that we were able to have this conversation, because I know that there are so many people who can benefit from the knowledge and the strategies that you helped to share during this session. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for agreeing to come on and have this conversation so that we can help more speakers to really stand out and be the best version of themselves.
Thank you so much. Before we end, I do have one offer. So I have a speaker strategy session offer. It actually ended on the 19th. I was offering it to a limited amount of people. However, if anyone would like to take advantage of that, I will open that offer up until Monday for 5 people, the first 5 people that reach out to me. So you might say, well, what's a speaker strategy session? This is really good for new and emerging speakers who you might say, well, I want to speak, but I have a topic in mind. I'm not sure if this works. I don't know the audience that I should be presenting this topic to. Who is my niche audience? How do I start? Is this even a viable topic? So we're going to talk about all of that. What is your topic? And some people have a few, but we're going to narrow this down. What is it that you really want to talk about? Who is the ideal audience, your target audience, to hear this topic, this presentation? How does your expertise play a role in it? Usually when we're talking about something, it's all of our experiences that make us who we are that have propelled us to want to talk about this. We have some backstory, some back experience with this. And then, is this a viable topic? Is this something that you can actually take and run with it, get booked for? We will talk about all of that. It's an hour session. It's conducted over Zoom. And usually that is $300, but like I said, I'm extending it till Monday for $99 for the first 5 people that reach out and would like to take advantage of it. It's really good for new and emerging speakers who are just starting out. They want to make sure that they are starting out on the right foot.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that amazing offer. I know there are so many people that, first of all, let me just say, if you are listening in on this, like, I highly encourage you to take advantage of this special offer from Rokita, because not only is she certified in helping to support speakers, service providers, business owners, anyone who leverages speaking as a way to grow themselves, to help support their audience, or to grow their business, I highly encourage you to reach out and to take her at this offer, because this is her expertise. This is her strength. This is what she is certified in. And I want you to know that and trust that you will be in wonderful hands moving forward with Rokita.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you for this opportunity today to address your audience. Public speaking
Absolutely.
is it's a great way to put yourself out there to let the world know. You can let a lot of people at once know about what you do, what you offer. We all have a voice. We got to use it. We got to use it.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you again. And I will be speaking with you again soon.
Terrific. Thanks,
All right.
Danielle.
All right. Thanks. Bye.